Okay, so in the last video, we fixed up our navigation to make it mobile friendly and to make it look nice and hover overable and clickable. Remember that hover doesn't work on mobile, of course, so it's not the only way that you want to let people know that that menu is clickable, but that looks pretty straightforward to me that I would assume if I saw that at the top of the page, it would be a menu. Let's go ahead and take a look over at our index.html again. I've got an image here that's inside of a link, and I've got a paragraph underneath it that's intended to serve as a caption for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a class over in the index.html of caption. And the reason I'm using a class and not an ID is that I could anticipate I might have more than one caption on a given page. So a class makes more sense here semantically than an ID, which can only be used once. So we'll make this a caption, and then what we'll do is we'll start typing the command for it over here in this style sheet. So we'll write caption, and then we'll start writing our style rules for our caption here. Now what I want to do with this text is to make it darker, give it a different font family than the rest of the body text, and then we'll move it over to the right side of the page, make it italic, do some other things to it. So you'll get a little bit of practice here doing all those things. So the font family that I want to use here is the same one that I used up above for the H1 element. So it's Georgia Times New Roman, comma goes outside, and serif is the font stack that I'm going to use. I'm going to make this text black. Remember, the color command refers to the text that's inside of the content area. The background color is the other stuff that's there. I'm going to give it a font style of italic. It's always a little bit confusing. Font weight is where you get your bold and those kinds of things, or thin styles. Font style is where you get italic. We're going to text align this to the right, and we're going to make the font a little bit smaller. We're going to do 0.8 of an M, and an M is a unit of measurement that's equal to a capital M in whatever font family you have here. So now it's aligned to the right. It looks a little bit nicer there. It has some margin on the top of it. If we take a look in the web inspector, what we'll see is that that paragraph itself has some margin set on the top of it, and this is margin that's automatically styled by the browser. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that margin so that it ooches up a little bit closer to the picture. So we'll do the margin top command, and I'll just say 0. Get rid of any margin on the top of it, save it, refresh over here, and now it looks like the photo moved down, but actually the rest of the page moved up. I just had it scrolled all the way down. So that's pretty straightforward. If I see this on a page, I would assume that this is the caption that goes with this photo. I could do some different things with it if I wanted to. And I would probably not right align this if it were a longer caption, but this is just basically there to give you guys the idea of how you would actually align that text. Okay. Two more things to do. I need to style up this footer to look a little bit different. The footer is where you'll usually find the copyright information or the author information that we have here. So back to the index one more time. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give this, paragraph an ID of footer. There's also a footer tag in HTML5 that we'll deal with later, but for now we'll just roll with it this way. Go back over to my style sheet and give it an ID of footer. And I can write my style rules inside of here. And much of the stuff that's going to be in the footer here is actually similar to the caption text, so I'm just going to steal some of this stuff from here because I'm fundamentally just kind of lazy and it's easier to copy and paste than it is to retype all this stuff. So the font family is going to be the same, so the color, the font family. The font size is 0.8 of an M as well that I'm going to want to write in here. And then I'll put a border on it. I'm going to use a border on the top of this thing to differentiate it from the bottom of my other content. And I'm just going to give it a 1 pixel solid black border. And we will do that. And get rid of this, pull this up so it's a little bit tighter, save that, and we'll take a look at the result over on the other screen. Okay, so now my content copyright 2017 is me in there, the line is across here for the footer, and we're all good there. Just to remind you guys, over here in the index, this is called an HTML entity. There's a lot of these for things like copyright symbols, trademark symbols. If you want to have a left or a right arrow in your code, you need to use one of these because otherwise the browser will treat it as though it's a part of an HTML element, but we'll talk about those as they come along. Okay. This all looks awesome with one exception. If we look back at the index again, this image is inside of an anchor tag, so it's inside of a linked element. In older versions of Windows, this will have a big old blue ugly border around it because it's a link, and Windows tends to be very literal about links. So I'm just going to remove that from any image that I have here. I'm just going to do image, and we're going to say border none. This is part of your This is part of what you have to do for your assignment, so don't forget that. It's not going to show up for most of you guys that have Macs. It may show up for some of you who have PCs. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit Save All, just to make sure that I save my index and my style sheet and everything like that. And now what we have over here in Firefox is my finished version of all this. So again, the border didn't apparently change here because it's not going to for me on my Mac, but it will on a PC or something like that. So that's pretty much it at this point. That's the example. If you followed along with this, you should be fine in class to style up your page in a similar way. You can use whatever styles you want. It really does not matter at this point to me or to Elizabeth at all. We will judge you a little bit if you use like purple and yellow or something like that, but you won't lose points for it. So hopefully this was worthwhile, and we'll see you in class.